Alright, so a video was requested. Murphy Firearms Training here. Someone asked how to set up a reload all 2 or to change between one load to another. So, here goes. I've got my Advantages manual. You can buy that online. And I went through and I have actually marked the loads. I've marked the wads that I have in my shop in highlighter, as I buy them in bulk, and so I'll buy a bunch. A lot of times I'll buy one bag and I'll try them, and if I like them, I'll buy a bunch. Bought this particular wad, really like it for short range work. Okay, so I've got some cheatite shells primed. I've got tight wad powder. I've got this wad. It's a 7/8 of an ounce load, and it's gonna run about 1375 feet. You can load it with number 8s or number 9s. I'm gonna load it with number 8s. With number 8, you're going to need an overshot card. And I've got those. So I've got all the stuff for this load, okay? So here we go. We've got our, let me make sure I got this right here, right? So, actually, no, I'll load number 9s because that's the number 9 load right there, okay? So I'll load number 9s. We'll follow the, well, actually, we can go up here and load 7.5, so it'll be fine too, okay? So we'll load this one, 7.5, because I've got 7.5 shot. So, tight wad, 19 grains. This wad, the Pisc Light wad, 7/8 of an ounce, 7.5 shot. There's your pressure reading, and then 1335 feet per second. So, what I need to know is, how do I get 17 or 19 grains? Because remember, you've got these 2 loads here. They're back to back in the manual. Okay, so that's going to be your maximum right there. And then you can go under that. So I need somewhere between, I'd like to be between 17 and 19 grains. But max 19 grains, okay? So, and I've shown this sheet before. I've published this sheet. Basically it's using the VMD to find the powder that I'm looking for, okay? And the powder we're looking for is tight wad. We want between 17 and 19 grains, okay? So here we go, 18.7. or 17.8. Pick one. Okay. If you want a little less kick, you'll go closer to 17. If you want a little more, you'll go closer to 19. Okay. These are for up close work, and so that lighter load, that is fine. It won't bother you at all. But I'm going to go with the higher load. I don't know. I like a little more kick. Okay. So I'm going to go with this 18.7, and that shouldn't require an overshot card. So 18.7 grains of tight wad is going to be a 148 powder bushing. Okay, 148 powder bushing. And we already know we need a 7/8 of an ounce shot bushing. So, here we go. All right, so I have dug through my bushings. Here is my 148 powder bushing. Okay, and here is my 7/8 of an ounce shot bushing. So now, we've got the bushings for the new load. I've got the powder, right? So I want to use tight wad powder. So I go over to my bench and I get my tight wad powder, okay? And I'm going to get my number 7.5 bird shot, which is just sitting. I actually use, so this is an old powder container, and I just put my bird shot in that instead of leaving it in the bags, just because it's a little easier to handle. Okay, so I've got all that. I'm ready to set my press up with a new load. Here's the problem. Let's go to the press. Here's the problem. The press is already set up for a different load. So it's got number 8s over here, and it's got some Clay's powder that I was loading earlier. And I write my loads on top, you can see. So I'm going to show you how to change this from the load I've got with fairly full hoppers, because it's really hard when it's full. It's a lot easier when it's empty, but I'm going to show you with it full, because if I can do it with it full, you can do it with it empty, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do this. It's not that hard, and just kind of give you the runaround on how to do this, okay? So hang on, let me put you on a tripod here. All right, so here goes. I've got you on a tripod now, so I've got my hands free. I've got my shot here. This is my number 8 shot bucket. I've got my Clay's powder here. That's what's in the hopper now. And I'm going to show you how to change all this out. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your shot and powder slider here in the middle. Okay, you're going to put it in the middle. And the reason you're going to do that is so that nothing's coming out, nothing's getting captured. ideally, right before you, I thought I had a flathead screwdriver. There's a flathead screwdriver. Ideally, right before you finish your last box of shells, instead of flopping all the way back over to powder, you'll stop in the middle. But I didn't do that. So anyway, we're going to take these two screws out. You're either going to use a flathead screwdriver or you're going to use a nut driver. Okay? And word to the wise, these are tightened into plastic. Don't over tighten them, guys. And if you see my little cummerbund here, I had back surgery and I have to wear it. So, and I can't lift a whole lot right now, but I'll be all right. So, I'll take these two little screws out. I always lay them on the bench. I don't want to lose them, right? Lay that on the bench. Make sure this thing doesn't slide out, okay? Make sure your slider for your powder and your shot doesn't slide out, okay? Let's take my top off. Now, you're supposed to store your bushings in there, but I find that that's just cumbersome. I keep them on the shelf, so that's just an empty, that's nothing for me, okay? So now you got your powder and your shot here, and I'm going to show you how to do this. First thing you got to do is get this thing off without spilling. So what I like to do is push down, and you're going to pop these arms. They flex outwards. So you're going to pop them off and pull that back or forward. It doesn't matter, and kind of I let it fall backwards because it falls back onto my bench. Okay. Now, the reason I push down, this thing's got a big old spring on it, and depending on how much shot you've got in here, this thing can actually shoot up on you. So I push down just out of habit because it's usually fairly empty when I'm changing it. So we're going to lift up. You're going to see this long spring, okay? And there's a little plastic follower. I'm going to pull it out for you. Sticks out right there, okay? Little plastic follower. I just go ahead and pull that out for now so I don't lose it. And I just leave that spring dangling there, okay? So it's got the plastic follower and it, just leave that dangling. So here's my shot and my powder. And what I'm going to do is I've got my open shot container. And this is the reason I don't keep my shot in shot bags, because this is impossible with a shot bag. Okay? I'm going to put my hand over the powder. Okay? Just a nice good seal over the powder. I'm going to pour the shot into the shot container. And if I do it right, not a single drop of powder comes out. Then I take my powder container, and I can cheat and just set it in my shot container. You can set it anywhere you want to. And the seal likes to stay in that one for some reason. Okay? And I'm going to take this and just take the corner and very carefully pour my powder. And I say very carefully because this stuff likes to kind of sit in one big clump, and then you pour it, and then the whole big clump tries to go, kind of like ice in the bottom of a cup. So you see I kind of wiggle it and keep it from doing that. Okay? Now you have a little bit of powder that's in that shot bush, that's in that powder bushing down at the bottom. So I'm going to slide this. So here's I'm going to slide that, and I'm actually looking down in here. I'm going to slide that over until it lines up. Okay? And then turn. And that's pretty much empty. And for whatever reason, certain powders, if you, so if I'm loading several boxes, I'll set this thing up and I'll load a box tonight and I'll load a box 2 or 3 nights from now. And they say you're not supposed to do that. And the reason they say that is because when you get in here, you can see there's this powder residue that kind of just hangs in there. So I take my finger and kind of just knock that loose. And it's amazing. Sometimes, I mean, it's really stuck sometimes. But I'll take my finger in there and kind of knock that all loose. And usually that stuff that was stuck on the inside there. And then I'll take a screwdriver and I'll go into that one corner where I can't quite reach with my finger. So there's one corner I can't quite reach with my finger. And I'll knock all this powder loose because I don't want to mix 2 kinds of powder. I'm kind of picky about that. Okay, so I'll knock all that loose, get all that cleaned out, and I dump that little bit that's left in that corner into my scrap powder jar. I don't, and you'll notice my finger came out black. Okay, my finger came out black because I've run graphite in there, and running graphite in there has helped. It has not stopped, but you see I have a scrap powder jar, and I just dump that little handful in the scrap powder jar, Anything that's stuck inside there, I just don't want to use it again. Okay, so it's nice and clean. It is ready for the next powder. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set this thing back down. So I'll take my plastic thing. I'm going to insert that into the bottom here. Okay, so just drop that in. And it'll sort of kind of fall out. I'm going to line it up on that spring. Then line that square up on this aluminum rod. Push down and hold it. And you'll swing this back into place. And basically, you got to flex this out and get it to line up. Okay? And you're back together. Okay? You're not done. You're going to take out your shot bar. And again, you'll see a lot of black on here. That's graphite. Graphite's really helpful for your presses to keep things going. And I have a custom shot bushing in here. I've got a video on that. And then I've got the 198 powder bushing. So I'll take those out and I'll put them on my shelf where they go so that we don't lose them. Okay. And then we're going to take the powder bushing and we're going to insert that on the left-hand side when the machine's facing you. Okay, so the 148 powder bushing. And the 7/8 of an ounce shot bushing, we're going to insert that on the right-hand side. Okay, and we'll slide that back into the machine. Uh-oh, I lost my 7/8 shot bushing. It fits in there kind of loose. Okay, I'll stick that in kind of in the middle. And the goal is that neither of those holes is lined up with shot or powder. Okay, now you'll put your plate on and you'll put your screws on. And the hardest part is putting these little screws on and not losing one. Okay, because they're really short, so they're hard to get started. Okay, I do know folks that will leave these screws almost hand tight, but then this bar can flop out, and I don't like that. So I'm going to snug them up. They don't have to be superbly tight. They really don't. Snug is all they need to be. Okay, so I use a really small screwdriver, and that kind of keeps me from putting all my gorilla strength into it. Okay, cool. So that's on. My slider's there. Again, position that about in the middle. Now, what was my load? My load was, and I'm going to go ahead and, this was the powder that I was using. I'm going to put that on my bench. Okay, number 8 shot is what I was using. I'm going to close that because I don't want to use it anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and fill up my shot and fill up my powder. So the way I do this, I push the handle down. I just stand against it. Literally, just hold it in place. And I'll pour my shot. Pardon the noise. All right. So that's 7.5 bird shot. Little lead dust in the air. No big deal. I'm sure I've breathed plenty of it. And then tightwad powder. We're going to fill up this side. Okay. How full? I don't know how many you're going to load. I always fill it up. At least mostly full. There's really no reason to only put like 1/3 of a hopper. Okay. Go ahead and put that. And my powder, I'll either keep on the shelf and then label my load, or a lot of times I'll set the powder right next to the press. That way I know what powder I'm using on that press. It really depends. I mean, if I'm going to be loading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds, I'll go ahead and put that back on the shelf. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape off. This tape was my previous load, so it's just painter's tape. I'm going to pull that off, and I'm going to go ahead and put a new piece of painter's tape on here, and I'm going to write the wad, the shot bushing, the powder bushing, what charge it's supposed to throw, what hull I'm using, everything. I'm going to write all that data on top on a piece of painter's tape, and that way if I walk away from this press today, it's ready to go. The last thing I will do is I will go ahead and weigh this powder charge. I don't really care about the shot charge. The lead bushings always come up short on the shot charges, always. I mean, if it says 7/8 of an ounce, it will come up, 7/8 of an ounce is like 0.925 ounces. And it'll come up between, 0.899 and 0.920, depending on what size shot you're using. But it's always going to come up a little light. And then the powder bushings, in my experience, always come up a little light. You could adjust to the next highest powder bushing to try and get up to that maximum of 19 that was in our loading manual. but I'm good with just what it throws. I'm not, it does throw a consistent powder charge, but it tends to be just a hair under what the loading manual or what my data that I developed using the VMD shows, and I'm okay with that. So my max was 19. My data says, what did it say, 18.3? No, tight wad, wrong thing. It said, yeah, my max was 19. My data says 18.7. If I'm at 18.7, I'm great. Guys, if I'm at 18.3 or 18.4, remember that lighter load, let me look in the manual here. Yeah, 19 and 17. So as long as I'm above 17 and under 19, I could care less. Okay? So then I'll get my hulls, I'll get my wads. If they're not primed hulls, then I'll get my primers and I'll start loading. But that's how you set it up. So if you have a lead load all 2, you have a load you've been using, you want to change it, that's the best way I know to change it. And then I take this shot container that I'm not using anymore because that's my number 8s, and I set it on the shelf. And I'm done. So anyway, hope you enjoy it. I hope it's helpful. If you have a load all 2, they're handy little machines, can save you some money, especially for like your quail, your pheasant, your dove loads. I really enjoy mine. I enjoy shooting my loads. If you have questions, leave them in the comments or shoot me a message. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I appreciate your support.